Over the past year, what was the biggest success story of TV's streaming era? The answer is coming at you on this edition of Brio TV, the podcast. While the big streamers seemed to hit the wall in 2023 in terms of subscriber growth, the good news was over in the FAST channel realm. FAST standing for free, ad-supported streaming television. Consumers, battered by higher interest rates and rising prices at the gas pumps and at the grocery stores, embraced less expensive viewing options. Well, you can't get less expensive than stream now, pay never. That is the brilliant slogan of Pluto TV, which came to Canada a year ago and took off like a rocket. In 1 year, Pluto TV became the largest FAST platform in the country, pacing at over 1 billion total viewing minutes monthly. In that same year, Pluto doubled their content offerings to the point that they now deliver over 40,000 hours of movies, shows, documentaries, news, and music, all live and all on demand. They've done it by offering fan favorites such as Star Trek, CSI, NCIS, South Park, Doctor Who, Frasier, Cheers, even Dora the Explorer. On this episode, we're going to meet the Canadian executives who helped get Pluto TV into orbit and can tell us where it's headed next. First up, Doug Smith, Senior Vice President, Streaming and Content Licensing, Canada, Paramount Global. And then we'll talk to Katrina Kowalski, Senior Vice President, International Content Programming and Acquisitions for Pluto TV. Congratulations on a great year, the first year in Canada, Pluto TV. Tremendous success with the FAST channel. Did you exceed even your own expectations?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's probably the most exciting year for Pluto in any country around the world. It was a launch where we had high expectations for Canada. We thought it was a perfect market for free television. And we kind of proved ourselves correct in the first 4 weeks, to be perfectly honest, where the numbers spiked so quickly that we almost had to recalibrate our expectations for the year. And then we exceeded those expectations when we finally hit the 1 year mark.
Well, I think the marketing phrase, stream now, pay never, has to be one of the greatest ad sales pitches I've ever heard. Like, that has to appeal to not just Canadians, but everyone, right?
I think you're correct. We also had no password, no problem this summer, which is also a very clever turn of words. But really specifically to what Pluto stands for, I think that's part of the reason why it was so successful in Canada out of the gate is being Canadian myself. There's nothing free in Canada. Like free TV, as you probably know, was never free in Canada.
No.
So, it's always been a challenge. And I think that's where a lot of Canadians fell in love with Pluto because it wasn't just a marketing ploy. It's very easy to access. You click in and it immediately starts streaming quality content. And quite honestly, in the world that we work in, it's called premium content. It's not cats on skateboards. It's studio produced content that, quite frankly, I think Canadians can't believe was actually made available free to them.
Oh my goodness! You have the brands. You've got Star Trek, and you've got Comedy Central. You've got Nickelodeon. So, yeah, it's great value. And I think you're right. It's been a hard year for a lot of folks. Interest rates have been high and people have been feeling the crunch. So just economically, the timing could not be better for a service like yours, right?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Listen, Bill, I've been doing this for quite a while now. I started in the early 90s. And even when I saw the product that we launched with, and I'm sure you know this yourself, if you look at some of that content between Nickelodeon, South Park, which is Comedy Central, and the MTV brands, let alone the high quality CBS content that's also on there, which is everything from NCIS to CSI. This used to cost you $35 or more a month to subscribe to on basic cable. And now it's free. And so I think that's part of the reason why there's so much traction in Canada is that it's just such an incredible value. And as I like to say, it's sort of replicating or replacing basic cable in the streaming world.
Yeah, it used to be you had to go around the back door half the time to see Comedy Central. Shows like The Daily Show, of course, were on Bell channels for many years, but a lot of other content just did not cross the border. And I think other people like myself, you'd look for it, you'd find a YouTube video and it would say content not available in your region, right? So it was nice to find it in such an easy way on Pluto TV.
Absolutely. And I think that's something you're going to see us leaning into in 2024 as we really ramp up our efforts to let Canadians know that we have MTV, we have Comedy Central, and then, as I always like to emphasize, and we have Star Trek, because Star Trek itself was also a title that was always part of the basic cable package or above, which meant you had to subscribe to get at it. And I think, as you probably know, Star Trek in Canada is lifeblood. Like it's one of the most well-loved television series of all time in the market. And so for people to finally be able to see it for free, I think not only are we satisfying the Star Trek fans, but we're letting a whole new group of people hopefully discover it for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Even, Discovery, of course, is shot in Toronto and had been for 3 or 4 seasons. And so we're part of that legacy. And of course, William Shatner is Canadian.
Yes, of course. And I always like to highlight Strange New Worlds, also shot here in our beautiful city. So we have two. I mean, that's something as a Canadian, we should be incredibly proud about, is that, two of the most technically advanced special effects, well-written shows on television today are shot here in our city of Toronto. One at the waterfront, which was Discovery, and then one out in Mississauga, which is Strange New Worlds. And we're always quick to boast that about 97% of the people working on those shows are Canadian.
Yeah, I've been to the set of Discovery when it launched, and it's stunning to stand and look up at basically the spaceship. I mean, the Discovery is there. I've been on the bridge and everything else. It's mind blowing. And I understand. I was talking to Mark Critch, who does that Son of a Critch show for CBC. They're doing an episode in January, and they've got their set designer who worked on the Discovery set design to craft them a replica of the original Star Trek bridge for an episode fantasy scene. Do you know anything about this?
No, I was going to say maybe we shouldn't be talking about that right now, but I'm going to say we'll call that fandom, and any support of Star Trek is good support. But no, I didn't know that was happening. But again, I just like to celebrate the fact that that's one of the benefits of having such a leading edge show in Canada, is that it not only lets us access some of the most skilled talent in the world, but that talent can then be used for other people's shows because they have that expertise. Because, and I'm sure you saw it when you were at the Discovery set. I was there when that show first launched, and there were people doing what they talk about in Hollywood studios all the time, like literally painting, details on a leaf on a plant that's going to be in the background, and they're on their knees, like carefully hand painting them. And I know we're in a world of 4K super high definition television, but they were not mailing it in. Every single detail was absolutely to perfection.
Yeah, no, it is quite stunning to see up close. Doug, you mentioned you've been in this business, you say almost 30 years?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Good for you. Now, where did you start?
Okay, well, I mean, listen, I started in production in 1990. So I won't get into all the detail, but I worked in commercial, like literally making commercials, and did some documentary production and some music videos, and then started to work in industrial video, making commercials for banks and that kind of stuff. But my first pay job as an executive was in 94, selling wildlife documentaries and importing UK television. So I was in the import-export business since 94. And then in 97, I moved over to Alliance before it was Alliance Atlantis. And that's where I fell into my studio career representing CBS and Endemol on the television side. So that was everything from of course, CSI was with Alliance, but that gave us Survivor on the CBS side and Big Brother and Fear Factor from Endemol. So it was a good place to cut my teeth. And in the heyday, we had Miramax and New Line. So we had everything from Austin Powers to Lord of the Rings. And
Wow.
after that was obviously a great experience for me. And then through that, I ended up back with then Paramount. But as you might know through the history, that's the CBS
Yep.
business. We were called CBS then, but in 2011, I think. So I think it's 2011. Since then, I've been in what is now the entity known as Paramount.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's congratulations on all of that. So better than most that television today really is a borderless business, isn't it? You've got to have a foot in a few countries, and whether you're producing or selling or acquiring, right?
Well, I mean, television, yeah, I definitely. I mean, and that's certainly one of the things that recently even came up with the Bill C-11 hearings with the CRTC in Ottawa just a few short weeks ago, where it's getting a double challenge for Canadians. I think one is our market, because quite frankly, isn't big enough to support producing just for Canada, because the shows are expensive to make, and
Right.
Canadians have, and rightfully so, a high expectation for what that content should look like.
Yeah.
So you have to make Canadian content that can travel around the world. And in similar, the reciprocating angle is Canada is such an important market that foreign producers need to make sure they're selling it in Canada to make sure they're getting full value. So in an odd way, I don't think Canadians realize this, but Canada is an incredibly important market, both for producing content that gets exported around the world, but also as a key territory for importing content, as Canadians consume a lot of television, like, quite honestly.
Well, I've been to MIPCOM several times, and I've seen, it seems like if Canada buys it, then other dominoes fall too, right? And so there is definitely a factor.
If you've been to MIPCOM, then you would also probably have sort of noticed that Canada does go first, to your comment. Canada, traditionally in another time, but it's still very much the case today, Canadians do their shopping in May, and the rest of the world does their shopping in October. So to your comment,
Right. Yeah.
it's exactly that. The rest of the world is waiting to see how it works, because in October, the shows are just starting to air, but Canada doesn't have the luxury of waiting to see if it works, because we're always day and date with the US. So yeah, Canada, and that's probably why you have seen a lot of Canadians go on to have success in the US in executive positions, and why Canadians are often highly sought after internationally for programming and scheduling jobs, because I think people realize these are executives who live in the very front lines of scouting and tracking and acquiring content.
Yeah, Brad Schwartz is doing pretty good. He's taking half the shows in Canada, put them on the CW. Smart move.
Yeah, the C in CW now stands for Canadian, but
Sure
Brad is certainly good at doing that, for sure. Yeah.
And we'll be back with more on Pluto TV in just a moment. Well, did you know that it was June Carter Cash who wrote one of Johnny Cash's biggest hits, Ring of Fire? That's just one of the things you'll learn watching June, streaming this month on Paramount Plus. June shines a spotlight on the history of country music and the Carter and Cash families. The 5-time Grammy Award-winning singer, actor, and author has opened for Elvis, appeared on screen with Robert Duvall and Jane Seymour, and as mentioned, was a damn fine songwriter. Featuring interviews with the woman herself, the film also includes sit-downs with her family, admirers, and friends, including Dolly Parton, Reese Witherspoon, and Willie Nelson. And remember, there's a mountain of premium entertainment for audiences of all ages on Paramount Plus. And we're back. Doug, what do you watch on Pluto TV? What are your favorite shows?
It's a funny thing for me, honestly, Bill, because I watch Pluto an awful lot, and the reason, not only because I'm interested in the service, but it's almost like radio for me. If you've only got 15 minutes and you don't have time to stream something from another service, it's just a great place to drop in and just watch something, because it's free, so you don't feel like you're giving anything up by tuning in. So I tend to watch it a lot. I refell in love with South Park. I had watched it for a while, but I'm back to it now, and it's one of our top watch shows. But I am, I'm living in the world of some of the niche content. I've always loved Rules of Engagement. It was an older CBS comedy, and I've often argued that it was one of the most overlooked shows on television. Great cast and really well written.
Is that David Spade on that? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it was a funny show.
David Spade. It's a great show. It went 100 episodes, as I always used to say, Bill. It went 100 episodes the hard way because the last few seasons were like, maybe even just 10 or 12 episode pickups. It wasn't 22 episodes over and over again. So it's earned its way to 100 episodes. And I also like the Red Green Show. I used to watch it when it was first out, and we have that on the service. And I don't know if this is one of those personal obsessions of mine, but I can't stop watching Catfish. And I've seen that show before, but when I tune into it, I'm always trapped with the stories because I can't believe what's going on before my eyes. So I'm an MTV viewer where I watch a lot of Catfish as well.
Wow, there really is something for everybody at Pluto TV, and even Westerns, Doug. This is the shocker to me. Yeah. You got Gunsmoke, you got The Rifleman. My neighbor next door, who also named Doug, he's thrilled to watch The Rifleman all the time on Pluto. I told him about Pluto TV. That's where he lives now. So
thank you for that. By the way, we need more word of mouth because the people who love Pluto love it a lot, and we're always grateful when they tell their friends and neighbors. But you're right, there is something for everybody, and Bonanza is another one that's well, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm thinking of Gunsmoke there for a second. Let me back that. I should back that up. I can't remember if we've got Bonanza on the site or not.
I know you have
it's Gunsmoke. I think it's Gunsmoke. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Sorry, pardon me.
But Paramount Home Video, or whatever they call it now, they just put out the Bonanza Complete series, still on DVD, which I just did a podcast episode with the guy who was the executive producer. So it's interesting that business still survives, even in the era of streaming. It seems like everybody's trying to really still find their lane, don't they? Doug, it's you've got Paramount Plus, of course, which is a big business with great shows, Pluto TV, and still this other home DVD business. Can they all survive side by side?
Listen, I think they all play a different role in the marketplace. I think what's exciting about this time is that it's never been better to be a consumer of television. Once upon a time, and I'm sure it's the same for you, you couldn't find some of the shows you wanted to watch because if it wasn't scheduled on linear television, just wasn't available. And certainly that supported the home entertainment business for many years because that was really your only other option was to rent it or to go out and buy your box set. But it's interesting. Like we just came off of an internal call today and our home entertainment team was talking about some of the box sets they have coming out in 2024. And I'm afraid I can't tell you what those are, but they're going back to the old school, like really, I'm going to say glossy box sets, almost magazine interiors where you can open up and read about a whole bunch of things. Because in a weird way, I think people are coming back to the idea of collecting their favorite shows and maybe getting something with special features or additional episodes. So there's room in both worlds. But for us, the way you introduced it, I think is fair. Paramount Plus is our premium streaming service, and there's a lot of incredible shows on that platform. Pluto is on the other spectrum. It's free. And remarkably, there's a lot of content there that's also premium and free. So it like I said, it's a good time to be a consumer. And it's hard for me to imagine anyone starting their streaming experience without starting on Pluto, because you should see what we've got and free already. Because I still want to come back to things like all that Nick content. Like Nick used to be hard to access in Canada, or
it was
expensive, $5.99 just to subscribe to the service in Canada. And now you can get Dora and some of those other great shows free. And obviously it's great for kids because if you like one episode of Dora, you're going to love 10 more because they all just play back to back to back. Right.
Well, I love being able to point listeners to shows that are hidden gems, and Rules of Engagement. That's a great one to single out. Is there anything else coming up in 2024 you might point people towards on Pluto TV?
Well, listen, I feel blessed because, and I think our whole team in Canada feels this way. Canada showed a lot of love for Pluto in 2023. So I think Pluto is going to do our best to share that love back to Canada in 2024. We do have a lot of plans to bring some more content. We're constantly looking for new partnerships. And so, I can't speak to what's coming too far into the future, but maybe the biggest one, again, in the kids world that we're talking about is Paw Patrol. We've got a Paw Patrol pick up for us. And not only is that a big show, but it probably is the biggest kids franchise in the world right now. Hard to measure that, but obviously that's also something that comes out of Canada, which we're incredibly proud to be partnered with Spin Master on that one. And we got more movies coming. We've got more series coming. I think for us, only being a year old, we have a lot to learn from our audiences in even finding out, is there a limit to how many times they want to watch some of the shows and whether we have to churn out of them. But right now we're feeling pretty good about our core channels, but we're always adding channels. We're over 150 channels now. So
incredible.
There's always something. Yeah, there's always something for somebody.
And the model of using these very short ads in smaller doses is one that's working for you, obviously.
Yeah, listen, this is a slightly different topic, but when we're thinking about how consumers, and this is an important comment from me, but actually watch the commercials, which is a very important thing to emphasize.
Yeah.
What we're learning is short pods. The commercial break time on Pluto, we have the same number of breaks, but usually it's not as long as traditional television. And what we're finding is we have a very high completion rate on our ads watched, which is, I think, going to be an important tipping point for the service in 24 and beyond, which is, advertisers are really struggling with the idea that it's hard to tell online if people are actually watching the ads or if they're paying attention to the banners. And with linear television, the reality is in many cases, people are fast forwarding through the commercials or skipping them altogether. And in the case of Pluto, we're finding our session time for viewers are long and very engaged, meaning they're not even changing the channel when they're watching. They'll sit down for a few hours at a time. And what that means is they're watching the commercials. They're not actually changing, even within the Pluto environment. They're not jumping around from show to show during the commercial breaks. If they're locked into watching a show like NCIS, they're locked in and watching NCIS and commercials included. So we're going to be very careful in playing with that ad balance. But what we have right now seems to be working. And as long as consumers continue to love our platform, we're going to stick with what works.
Oh, that sounds like a plan. And do you know who is watching? Do you have a sense that it's young, old, male, female?
Yeah, listen, it's quite. And again, I'm just going to repeat. We start, and this is one of our strengths as Paramount, because we're a house of brands from the U.S. that was built on the idea of having something for everybody. So it really starts with preschool with Nick and even into preteen with Nick, and then you get into MTV, and then you get into Comedy Central, and then you layer CBS and Paramount on top of that. Like, we really do have something for everybody. So, the data that we're collecting, I want to be really clear, isn't that specific, because I just want to remind you, don't have to sign in to watch. Right. So it's not like, it's not like most services where they say, like, fill out this form so we know who you are. But our data, just from general research, is it's a normal cross section with maybe one notable exception, which comes out of our research on shows like NCIS or a CSI that are traditionally associated with CBS primetime content, which is the streaming audiences is about 15 or 20 years younger. And in many cases, they're finding it for the first time because they're not traditional viewers of linear television, and they come across and start watching it. So we're also finding that it's not necessarily cannibalizing the linear experience, because they're different audiences. People who subscribe to basic cable and are catching the shows that way are watching them that way. And people who aren't, which is a growing part of the demographic, can find us for free on Pluto, and in many cases they're discovering these shows for the first time, which is, I'm sure you've heard this in conversations with people, but people will find a show on a streaming service. I'll go back to rules of engagement, and they'll tell me they can't believe they found the show like they discovered it for the first time, even though it's a show that's been on air for 15 or more years.
No, I think it's a great place to find all kinds of shows like that. So congrats again. And just
Thank
a final question, Doug, when you were a youngster growing up, was there a TV show that you just loved that you could hardly wait to rush home from school, or whatever that made you want to be in this business? Is there a show like that?
Yeah, listen, it's kind of funny when I think back, and I don't know why. I think maybe this applies to a lot of different people, but and it's not my answer. But I always land on Lawrence Welk, and it wasn't because I wanted to watch it, but it was what my parents always had on Saturday night. But the one that I always give as an answer is Cheers. Cheers, started in the early '80s, and it was one of the first. And I wasn't, I'm not that old, but I was young when it first came out, and why it always sticks in my head is, when I was 15 or so, I got a job, and the job started on Thursday nights, and that's when Cheers ran. Yeah. And the reason why Cheers always pops in my head was, and again, I'm dating myself, but you'll understand this, there was no catch up. There was no on demand. So I got a job. It meant I couldn't watch Cheers anymore. You'd go to work, and then the next day everybody would be talking about the episode, and there was no way to see it again. So in a funny way, it tickles me now that, of course, on Pluto we have a Cheers channel, and I still watch it from time to time. But every time I tune into Cheers, I'm just reminded there once was a time in television where if you didn't see it, you didn't see it, and then you had to get lucky if you caught it in a repeat, or you had to get lucky if it ever went into syndication. Yeah. So as I often try to point out to people, like kids today, you don't know how good you got it, because there once was a time where if you didn't see it, it didn't happen. No, there was a reason it was called must-see TV, right? You had to be there that was Thursday at 8. That was it, Bill. Like that was Cheers, I think, was the first show that might even started that campaign on NBC when they moved it over. So, that was must-see TV for sure. Great show. Well, listen, Doug, pleasure talking to you. Thank you for being generous with your time today, and continued success at Pluto. It's a wonderful service. I check it out, and I know a lot of friends who do, and just love the fact that you have such a menu, such a variety of programming. As you say, it's really from the cradle to the grave there. You got something for everyone. So pretty good. Yeah, we got something for everyone. Bill, thank you for your time. Tell all your friends. We want to spread the love for Pluto. It's one of those things where it's such a great service that it's easy to get behind it, because when people land on it, I've never had a person tell me they've been disappointed. So there's something there for everybody. All right. Thanks, congratulations, Bill. I appreciate your time. Take care. Thank you. And we'll be back with more on Pluto TV in just a moment. Are you old enough to remember getting up early on a Saturday morning to watch cartoons on television? Yes, kids, way back in the day before streaming on demand, you had to be in front of the set on a Saturday morning to see your favorite tunes. Well, relive this era on Wednesday, January 24th at the Westdale Theatre in Hamilton, Ontario. I'll be digging into my vault of 16mm goodies and projecting on the big screen some long-lost Canadian gems, such as Rocket Robin Hood, The Adventures of Hercules, Tales from the Wizard of Oz, and The New Adventures of Pinocchio. I'll also have clips from The Friendly Giant, as well as a truly bizarre little gem called Diver Dan. Remember the theme to the Roger Ramjet cartoons? Well, sing along to it on Wednesday, January 24th at 1 o'clock at the Westdale at the next TV on Film Party presentation. For tickets and information, go to thewestdale.ca. And we're back, and this time with Katrina Kowalski, Senior Vice President, International Content Programming and Acquisitions for Pluto TV. Congratulations on a very successful launch of Pluto TV. From what I understand, what is this? Is this true? 1 billion total viewing minutes monthly already in your first year?
That's right. Yeah, we're very, very proud of that metric. We know that Canadians love the service, and that's a pretty substantial metric to back it up. So yeah, we're really excited.
And I think you've got the best slogan, stream now, pay never. I mean, how do you top that? That right there is the whole success story, right?
Well, I mean, stream now, pay never, the best content offering in the country.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, look, I think free is amazing. And especially when you've got the sort of caliber of content that we've got on the service. So we think it's a really fantastic proposition for Canadians. And, we just, thank you for taking the time to cover this because, we really want to reach as many Canadians as possible. I mean, we love our metrics and we can see that the service is growing. But, there's tons of Canadians that have not discovered us yet. So we'd love to be friend of mind for them, let them come test us out and see for themselves.
Well, they absolutely should sample. It's an extraordinary story. And you really do have, I mean, my goodness, Star Trek. I think if everyone's heard of that show, I mean, that's got to be a big draw. But everything, all the big CBS hits, CSI, NCIS, South Park, Doctor Who, Frasier, of course, Cheers.
Yeah.
And so those are just really very, very strong brands. Was there one of them that jumped out that surprised you that was maybe one of the bigger draws? Are you able to even, because people don't subscribe to Pluto, are you able to ascertain who's watching what?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. People don't subscribe. But yes, we can see data and sort of viewing habits and behavior. And, I think South Park is one that we knew was powerful, but it's so powerful that it's surprising. But, some of the other more hidden gems that we've got on the service, like you're right, we've got powerful brands, MTV, Comedy Central, Star Trek, of course. But, even things like Gunsmoke, remarkable success and pickup. And whether that's people who loved Gunsmoke before, and are rewatching, or if we found an entirely new audience. Canadians sort of love those Westerns. I don't know if you've heard about Yellowstone or not, but
right.
People really love Westerns here. So I don't know if that's what it is, but I would say, Gunsmoke is sort of one of those hidden gems too that have really resonated for Canadians. So it is the big brands. Those are very powerful and they definitely do a great job for us. But I think some of the how do I say this carefully? Because they're all my favorite children, but sort of maybe lesser known programs in this day and age, let's say, are also doing great for us too.
Well, I'm thrilled about the Westerns. My neighbor, Doug, loves The Rifleman. He watches Pluto TV. As soon as I tipped him off, he was all over this channel because there shows that he loved growing up. He could never find anywhere else. But you mentioned some that are sort of more hidden gems. Is there anything you want to single out? What is it that people might not come to mind that maybe they should be looking for on Pluto?
Yeah, I mean, I think what is critical for people to know is that we have dozens of categories, and I think it's over 160 channels now in Canada. Yeah. And I think the broadness of the offering and the fact that we have, those popular crime dramas or, those lean back comedy series that are just sort of like feel good. But we've got, great offering of kids. One of my favorites as a kid was Inspector Gadget. And
right.
we have a channel called Retro Kids, that features that show amongst several others. We have Out TV Proud, and we were, I don't know if you remember this, Bill, but we had the world premiere for that channel and we feel really proud about having it on the service. But, that's a hidden gem in my opinion. Do you know Bob Ross, the painter?
Oh, of course. We all grew up learning to paint from Bob. Yes. Happy Little Accidents.
Yeah. And so we've got Bob Ross, and everything in between. So I think, we've got a great home and DIY section. It's featuring, several sort of like celebrity Canadian designers and, builders like the Baumlers, of course, and, Scott McGillivray and Sebastian Clovis and Anna Olson and all of those guys. And so it is I think, and we've got news and we've got weather. So it's sort of like a one-stop shop. And if you can imagine back in the day where you had to pay for a cable package where you're sort of bringing in MTV channel and, the Space Channel and Bravo and all these things, like now it's, curated all in one place. And it's not necessarily meant as a replacement for, I think Pluto was always meant to be a companion platform. But I do think that, people might not realize how broad the offering is. And I'd love to message that out because I do think that there's something in there for everyone.
Yeah, when you mentioned 160 different channels, like there's literally an entire channel just devoted to Cheers, right? I mean, it's right. Broken down just like that. And it helps when you have series that have 200-300 episodes to devote a channel to them.
Yes.
Frasier, I know that during the pandemic here, we watched every single episode of Frasier again. People were isolating and it was a great, very funny show.
Yeah. It's like chicken soup for the soul, kind of,
Right. And how does it dovetail with Paramount? You're under the Paramount umbrella. That's CBS. That's all of this history of television for 70 years. How does Pluto help Paramount Plus? Is there ways that people can sample here and follow up there?
Yeah, 100%. So I think there's a few ways that, Pluto can be really complementary to Paramount Plus. So, the example that you just said, so stunting or sampling on Pluto TV, where we might unlock something that has recently premiered on Paramount Plus. So, for instance, we did a Special Ops Lioness stunt where we did unlock the first episode. And I think that's a great way to support Paramount Plus. I think, allowing people to watch that first episode for free. And then if they like it, obviously we'd love for them to come back to Paramount Plus and subscribe. We've done that with other series as well, Twisted Metal, just off the top of my head, and with more to come. So I think that's one way. And I think, whether it's, shoulder programming. So we had, great success with Mutant Mayhem, the latest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. And you sort of can support not only Paramount Plus, but just the Paramount ecosystem at large, because, you can light up a whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stunt or channel, and we still have it under the kids zone. But, you're able to surface content that is directly related to a theatrical priority, a Paramount Plus priority. And not only does it help that, but it also drives viewing back to Pluto because, that's in the zeitgeist. People are talking about turtles. They might be searching it. Mission Impossible was another great one that we did with the Dead Reckoning premiere in theaters in the summer. We unlocked all of the past Mission Impossible movies on the service. So we can be creative and we can, work with our partners and, create lots of excitement. So, just to name a few. And of course, we can always nest some promos in our commercial time for Paramount Plus.
Yeah, that's absolutely a window. And Kat, just tell me a bit about yourself. How did you come to this job? You're senior vice president. You're in charge of content and bringing all these great goodies to viewers. What was your path there? Did you study television? Did you come from another medium?
Well, don't laugh, Bill. I have a degree in biology, actually.
Oh, well. It's always good to have something to fall back on.
Cocktail parties now, sadly. You know what? Look, I'll tell you the long story since we're getting to know each other. I got a summer job at Sportsnet while I was still in school. And it was the best job in the world. I had very little responsibility. It was a summer job. And I thought, wow, this TV industry is so much more fun than what I was learning about in my biology lab. And so I finished up my degree. I got into Ryerson's radio and television arts program, but the summer in between, I did another summer gig, this time at CTV. And I was on Suzanne Boyce's desk. I was stepping in for her EA. Do you remember Suzanne, Bill?
Oh my God, Suzanne! She's the mentor of all mentors. Yes, of course. She's did such amazing work at CTV.
So I doubt that she remembers this conversation, but we were walking. Oh my God, she's amazing. And so we were walking to a meeting, and I said, Suzanne, I've been offered a job to stay at CTV full time, or I could go to, I could do my school. And Suzanne said, well, why don't you stay here and get paid to learn? And I said, okay. And that was it. And so I deferred my acceptance to Ryerson, and I ended up working with amazing mentors. Like my first full-time job was with Corey Coe, and Corey is an incredible leader. I was so blessed to work with her. So I did a lot of business affairs and things like that with her, and then moved to research. I worked with Rob Dilworth. And I was in charge of the national overnights for CTV, which was a very, very important job because every day I would send out the overnights. And at that time, overnights were everything.
Oh, Bill knows all about overnights.
Oh, absolutely. You can't find them anymore, Laura. They're hidden.
I think so, yeah.
Oh my God. And then, I begged Pat DiVittorio to hire me into programming, and she finally did. And then I worked with Pat, I worked with Mike Cosentino really closely. And that was a big chunk of my career at Bell Media. I probably worked with them 10, 15 years, the two of them. So we were a well-oiled machine. And then I got a call a couple summers ago, and it was about a job for Paramount Plus in Canada. And, as much as I, loved working with Pat, and at that time, of course, we were going through a lot of restructuring at Bell Media. And I loved the team. I mean, God, I'd spent 20 years of my whole life, right? That's a long time. And, but the opportunity to come and build something new for a company like Paramount, the opportunity was just so incredible. And so I did, I joined and I ran Paramount Plus for Canada. And then that quickly became Paramount Plus in Pluto. And Bill, I'm not sure if you know this, but I just stepped into a new role in September, where I am now Senior Vice President for Pluto International on the content side. That is now, it means that I am now responsible not only for the Canadian content strategy, but I oversee the content strategy for all of our international markets, which mean all the markets except for the US.
Wow.
And I think, it's a testament to the amazing team in Canada. I could not have the success without people like Laura, Matt, Stefania, Tom. I could name them all. Mm-hmm. And I think, I think we've had real success. So I think, launch strategies and working with teams and things like that. That's what I like to believe is really in my wheelhouse. So the chance to lead an international team of amazing content experts, it's a dream job. I'm so thrilled to be in it. I've only been in it for 3 months, but I'm inspired every day when I'm not, scared to death.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And obviously you would have been at MIPCOM and places like that, right?
Yes.
In the international marketplace that's in France every October, I think. And
That's right.
That must have been a great learning experience, a great eye-opener to see all that content in one pavilion, right?
You know what? Have you been there, Bill?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. And so let me tell you, having a home base like the Paramount sort of, gosh, what do you call them? The pavilion.
Yeah.
Having a home base is incredible. The year before that, I went with Paramount Plus where we didn't have a home base. We must have gotten about 20,000 steps a day. The way you have to sort of ping all over, up the street, down in the basement over here. But, those markets are amazing. And, there is so much incredible international content available. And so meeting all those people is key, I think, to unlocking and finding, yes, the big hits and the really recognizable IP, but I think that there are so many other content providers with amazing content that would work really, really well for us on Pluto TV. So it's a good cross section of all the super big studios, but also some of the smaller ones too. So yes, terrific learning experience. But just excuse me for one second. I'm going to open the window in my office. It's boiling hot.
Certainly. Yeah. That's just how hot it is at Pluto TV right now. We've got to open a window.
Oh my God. Well, you can see this is the heater right
The
here.
rads are pouring, or it's as hot.
Oh my gosh.
It's as hot as it is on Pluto.
Look at his mouth.
One last thing about MIPCOM, I was, I guess, first there about 10 or 12 years ago, and it was back before streaming really took off. And it was even more of a mind blower in a way, because you just weren't aware that there was so much content all around the world. There was reality shows about showers or releasing hounds and every crazy, stupid thing. Killing a fly, that was a show, but now literally you get all of that on like something like Pluto TV, right? Like, it's instead of having to go to France and see all these people under one roof, you have it for viewers. Everybody can have this experience now, really, with all this content.
Yeah, we pride ourselves on that. And I mean, we also have an incredible team of content curators. I'm not sure if you would have seen our latest marketing campaign, but we're very proud of the fact that we have humans curating for humans. And so we've got, a team in Toronto programming for Canadian audiences. And so we really take great pride that we're actually trying to bring in, again, broader IP, but also some of that smaller niche hidden gem type programming, so that, we are able to bring it all into one place.
For sure. Are you also responsible for bringing Canadian content then to other countries that are with Pluto TV?
I mean, I think I'm not responsible for that as my job description, but I think I can certainly advocate for the amazing content that Canadians produce. And, that I could definitely be used as an ally there for sure. I'd love to. I think Canadian content is just as good as American or UK or German content, and it deserves to be seen worldwide. So
you mentioned some of the
help wherever I can.
You mentioned some of the DIY shows. Are those the big Canadian draws, or is there something?
I mean, we have other Canadian content as well. We've got a channel that's sort of dedicated to Canadian. It's called Truly Canadian. And so we even have things like the Red Green Show on there, or Arctic Air, but yes, we've got the DIY and home, but we have, oh gosh, I always mess this up. I think it's 13 news channels, 1 national news channel, and 12 local news channels.
Wow.
And that's incredible too, because you do get that national offering, but obviously, if you can appeal to the people in Okanagan Valley with Okanagan local news, awesome. Same thing with Peterborough and, in the Maritimes. And so, we get a lot of, I guess, viewing in the news section too, because I do think that we're appealing to more than just the one national audience. So we really like that. And, of course, the Weather Network. Canadians love their weather. And, I think having a channel for the Weather Network is incredible. And it's, it's different than the Weather Network on cable. So, I think it's just, a point of differentiation. And, going into the winter, it could be one of our most watched channels.
Oh, it's very vital. That's a definite must. Katrina, I'd like to just thank you again for your time, and congratulate you on running like the largest FAST platform in Canada. That's an incredible achievement. Thanks, in 1 year. I'll leave you just with one last question. Sure. What is your favorite all-time TV theme song?
Oh gosh. Ooh, maybe it's there's no words, I don't think, but the 90210.
Oh, okay. There you go. Wow, you're even going to sing a theme song without words.
Oh my God, don't put that out on the internet, Phil. Nobody needs to hear me sing.
That should be its own Pluto TV channel. Listen, thank you so much for your time. Congrats again, and continued success in 2024.
Thanks, Phil, so much. I hope we get to chat again.
Thank you. You too. Well, thanks as always to producer Phil Hong for getting this episode into orbit. Thanks as well to the crispy critters, especially BJ Del Conte and Paul Boudra, as well as my old pal Stephen Dudley on keyboard for the music used on these podcasts. And to you, listener, if you enjoyed what you heard here today, please favor us with a review or a like. I'm Bill Brio. Thanks for listening.